What's going on, everybody? It's Dr. Chris Featherstone here for yet another episode of Unscripted. It's Tuesday night. You know what that means. Have some of the biggest, the baddest, the best wrestlers of today and yesteryear. And this night is no different, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, he is a natural-born thriller, no matter how you feel her about it. Listen, he is a former WCW Tag Team Champion, a former, if I'm not mistaken, 15-time hardcore champion. Now, listen, we got all of this 24/7 thing going on now. I guarantee you that no one in the 24/7 division would pale in comparison to this genetic jackhammer godlike figure, ladies and gentlemen. He's got guns to pay the funds, and he's got curls to get the girls. Ladies and gentlemen, Shawn Stasiak, how are you tonight, my man?
Wow, that's a heck of an introduction, Dr. Chris. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure, man. It's great to have you on the show, my man. Listen, I'm right, man. 15-time hardcore champion, right?
Yeah, and it's funny. I thought about that actually. I don't think I ever left with the belt one time. I even took it back to the locker room. I think I won it in the ring, and then I lost it within a couple minutes. So. Yeah, that happened like 15 different times. So I'll take the stat of 15-time hardcore champion.
Absolutely.
But it's funny you mentioned about guns and working out and all. I'm in the parking lot at LA Fitness right now as we speak, and so I just train guns. So
yeah,
go figure.
Very nice, man. Great stuff. Well, let's look before we dive into these questions, man. Pretty packed crowd tonight. What are you doing nowadays, man? Let the listeners know.
Well, I've been a chiropractor for the past 15 plus years, serving my community here of Dallas Fort Worth, and along the way, I still have my hands involved with some different entertainment projects. One of them being my alter ego character, my theatrical expression. That's Phobia character. It means face your fears, own your life, and I'm doing some theatrical cinematic stuff with that, so stay tuned for that. But I'm developing kind of a wellness life coaching type chapter, or my own Tony Robbins, so to speak. I really love, Chris, to connect with people on the most authentic levels, and knowing a story or an insight or something that I can share authentically, from my heart, that truly can inspire people to help them break through into their greatness and live their best self. That's the most fulfilling thing for me. So I'm working on my own, kind of like an influencer, my own inspirational speaking career is becoming more formal. Every month now, I'm building it more and more. So
very nice, man. Where can the listeners find your information out before we dive into these questions, as far as where that stuff is?
Well, I've got some outdated websites, which we're going to upgrade very soon. But the Phobia one is phobiatv.com. That's FOBIATV.com. And of course, my social media handles, it's pretty simple. For Twitter and Instagram, it's Dr. Shawn, that's DRSHAWN 008, Dr. Shawn 008. And that's my two Twitter and Instagram handles. Of course, Facebook is Shawn Stasiak -Stippich. So I'm there too. But I think the websites I'm going to hold off right now. Hey, go to PW Mania, or I'm sorry, Pro Wrestling Tees. Rather, I had PW Mania in my mind because I need to talk with some people tomorrow, so I got a lot going on.
I used to write for them.
Oh, did you? Okay, yeah. Well, Andy's a good friend of mine. He's a good guy,
cool,
man. Love Andy. So anyway, but yeah, Pro Wrestling Tees. I've got my first set of Phobia T-shirts, and it's October. So if you're gonna grab one, rock that pink, man. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
ProWrestlingTees.com /
Shawn Stasiak. That's my store. Pro Wrestling Tees.
Very nice. ProWrestlingTees.com / Shawn Stasiak. So there you go. Go there or be square, ladies and gentlemen. All right, you ready to dive into these questions?
Absolutely. And I was going to say one last thing. This new website it's going to be just drshawnstasiak.com, but I'll post on social media once it's up and ready. That'll be the place to go, my landing page for people that are interested in, a kind of a wellness, developmental type course, not only getting better physically, but also, want to touch the minds and the hearts of people too. So it's kind of an overall breakthrough type of course that I'm putting together. So I wanted to throw that in there. drshawnstasiak.com, soon to come.
Very nice. Good stuff, man. All right. First question goes by typically the big shout out, man. This guy, Guillermo, man, he's usually ready to rock us like way before the show starts. So he gets first dib, man. He's asking how the meat gimmick was born and how was working with PMS, the Pretty Mean Sisters.
Yeah, that was just one of those things. I've been doing some interviews lately, and in fact, I have another one coming up this Thursday with Wrestling Shoot interviews, and so keep your eyes, posted for that. James Romero. But anyway, I had that question asked the other day, and I thought about it, and really, it's nothing different than an actor or an actress playing a role. My whole life I anticipated, taking after my dad and giving pro wrestling a shot, but I never anticipated being given a character by the name of Meat, of all names. So I'll be honest, I was actually kind of disappointed when I first was presented to me, because my dad's a former WWE or WWF champion, the 5th wrestler in the history of the company, and so I'm all about legacy and tradition. I'm just old school that way, and I really thought that I'd just be Shawn Stasiak, that had a full of pea and vinegar, so to speak, that was there to kick butt and take names and win titles and that sort of stance or approach. But I talked to some veterans and they're like, Shawn, just take the role, play it the best you can, get your feet wet, learn the craft, and it won't be forever. Sometimes gimmicks can kind of pin you in a box, like an actor. If you just play comedy movies, then is it hard to break through to become taken serious in a drama or a suspense? That can happen, but I think that real talent will find a way that have diversity, and I just took that role, played it the best I could given the cards I was given. PMS was great. Terry Runnels was she was the head diva at the time, and I actually learned a lot from Terry. She had been in the business like actively longer than I had been, so I learned little tricks and trades about the business and just certain things about the business, and ring entrance and even backstage, just how to conduct yourself and the do's and don'ts and things like that. So it was fun. It was always strictly business professional. I know I get that question all the time. Coming out with 3 hot chicks. No, didn't date any of them. Just working relationship.
Cool. Guillermo also asked your opinion of being given the gimmick of being clumsy in 2001. And my favorite memory of that was when the hotel employee knocked you with the door after giving you a hamburger, if I'm not wrong.
That was one of the fans' favorite skits.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was again just a goofy. I was talking to my good friend, Ryan Bowman the other day, and we were talking about I had a lot of goofy gimmicks that I played, things that I would, look, you never say never in that business, right? The pro wrestling business will always be synonymous with my name. I'll always embrace elements of that business. And I'm always open to the right business. But I mean, at my age, the stage of my life, the experience and wisdom that I have, the mistakes that I've made, I look back at my wrestling career, look back at my life as a man in the world today, and I just, those were just gimmicks that I played at the time because those were roles that I was given. I think I didn't have a very long career. People forget I was part of a very magnifying era, the Attitude Era.
Mm-hmm.
And people seem to think that I had been around a lot longer than I really had. I had only had like a 4-year career. It's not very long. And it takes sometimes 5-6 years, even longer, to really hone your craft, to really learn, psychology and also finding yourself of what's your character amped up times 100. When you walk to the ring, body language, the way you look at people, the way, same with the moves in the ring. It's your cadence, it's your promos. It's so many elements with pro wrestling that I was just learning, still in a learning phase, to put all that together. But they gave me the role to be the big goofy wildy coyote of the WWE. That's right when 9/11 unfortunately happened. And I got to say, I'm actually proud that the proudest moment of that whole goofy era and gimmicks that I played was when I worked with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. We were the very first public gathering of any kind after 9/11, 2 days after it had happened in Houston. Actually, where Joel Osteen's podium is right where I ran out after The Rock, and it was goofy, but it put smiles on faces and it got people's attention and, their minds away from just the tragedy and the sorrow and the grief and despair we were all feeling. So I was very proud when I watched that documentary WWE put out. I was part of that. I was part of something very, very special. And for that, I feel blessed and grateful that I had that opportunity to work that goofy gimmick that night.
Yeah. Roy is asking, greetings from Puerto Rico. What former wrestlers would you say helped pave the way for you when you got into wrestling? And what were the main differences of wrestling WCW and WWE?
Well, what paved the way was anybody before me. I mean, from my father's influence to in his generation, the guys that I grew up around, a young Roddy Piper, in Portland, Oregon. My mom's side of the family was from there. My dad was a huge hit. My dad was a big hit wherever he went. But Portland, Oregon, or the Pacific Northwest during the territory days, I have memory. That's where, speaking of Dwayne Johnson, I ran into Dwayne when he was 8 and I was 10, when Rocky Johnson, his father, would come through that territory. And we would play around in the ring when the matches were over. Our dads are in the, showering up and, going to the promoter's office, Don Owens' office, to get paid. And we're playing in the ring like it's a big playground. That's when I first met Dwayne, when we were, 1980. But guys like Harley Race and Andre the Giant and Playboy Buddy Rose, and these are just even the sheep herders, they were called, but they became the bushwhackers. Ric Flair. I mean, all these great names and talents came through the Portland territory. So I would say my earliest memories and influence was during the 70s and early 80s was a huge influence on me. And that would be really what paved the way. But Dr. Tom Pritchard, Dory Funk Jr., Paul Orndorff, God rest his soul, who I idolized and looked up to as a teenager, the Mr. Wonderful gimmick, loved it. And so those were the guys that trained me and more or less paved the way for me to get started. Difference between WWE and WCW, honestly, man, I only wanted to work for one company, and it was WWE. But unfortunately, I just, for whatever reason, well, there were a few reasons. I realized that I made some mistakes and kind of labeled myself. I was young, and we live and learn from our mistakes, looking back. But I just didn't have quite the opportunity that I was hoping that I'd have with WWE. WCW just treated me better. I had more TV time. I became a 3-time tag team, WCW world champion, traveled the world, made more money, had more fun. I would have loved to have had that type of support and love from the office with WWE, because that was ultimately the only place I ever really wanted to work, Chris. But, it's just for some reason that company and I just could never get it right.
Who was creative at that time? Was it Jim Ross that was dealing with he was dealing with talent relations, and then who was like really big on creative at that time?
The names that stand out in my mind are Bruce Pritchard, Jim Ross. Even when I first got there in '98 to start training camps with the Funking Dojos, when they were these training camps they'd have at the warehouse in Stanford. Jim Cornette was actually part of that too. So Cornette, it was Jim Ross, Vince Russo. I think started writing with them. This is like right before the Attitude Era. Right before that, I came in, started training with them. But yeah, Jim Ross, I think, was head of talent relations. I think Bruce Pritchard had something to do with creative. And of course Vince was always, the head honcho. Ultimately, everything goes through him. But that's from what I remember, from 20 plus years ago.
Yeah. So as far as just the inability to really find some good footing in the WWE, ultimately, like who was there anyone who was trying to like back you up as far as getting the footing from, being the son of Stan the Man Stasiak?
Yeah, you would think, man. In fact, Ryan and I were just talking about this just on Sunday. And I keep bringing up Dwayne Johnson, don't I? Got The Rock on my mind for some reason. I'm telling you, I swear, guys, this is the truth. It's happened for years. I'm going to document this. I should have all these years. Anytime I talk about him or make a mentioning or something, within 24 hours, something crazy, synchronicity will happen where something will come up on TV that involves my father and his dad, or his grandfather, High Chief Peter Mavia. My dad. I swear, I've always said it's High Chief's, his spiritual energy. I don't know if it's a Samoan island or something that's going on that brings us full circle. But, like Dwayne had Pat Patterson, for instance, kind of, I think kind of looking out for him a little bit. Not saying that hey, Dwayne worked his butt off and deserves everything he's ever got, not just in wrestling, but even in Hollywood and everything he's done. So, but you have to have some people behind you. You got to have, politically, you've got to have some people pulling for you. Same with, Jim Ross with Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, they were boys, you know what I mean? I mean, Steve is a great talent, one of the best revenue producing talents ever, and I love Steve. I think Steve's awesome. I love him. Loved his work, loved his character, and I think I think he's just really funny too. Now, I don't think he could come on this program, this being a PG-13, but but anyway, but everybody or anybody, not just in pro wrestling, especially with WWE, but I don't care if you're an actor, if you're an athlete, to have the right agent, musicians, any art form, especially, you got to have. I mean, this just in the world, that's just, I guess, nature of business is having someone there to kind of go to bat for you. I never had that one person. I've had different people. I guess Tom Pritchard trained me, but I don't think he was in a position like politically sitting in the office during those meetings. Hey, let's do this with so and so. And I don't think I ever had I could ever get out of the starting blocks with anybody kind of taking me under their wing, so to speak. And I don't think that helped me, honestly. And I'm not making excuses or pointing fingers. At the end of the day, you've got to make things happen. And I was willing to do the work. I always am, even to this day. I work my butt off.
Good catch.
Yeah, see, I caught that, man. But anything I've ever accomplished, I've worked myself, and I have. I feel like I've earned that, But you can be the best talent, have the best look and charisma and talent and all these attributes and accolades, but if you don't have the right people to influence the power of the pen, those people, you're going nowhere, man. You're really going nowhere.
Man. There's so many people, still to this day running on the outside track, man, and that person on the office, has that power to put you on the inside track. And so you're right, man. There's just so much talent there, and there's certain people who just needs that rub, you know what I mean? So Ryan has a question. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Chris, I think the takeaway and the message I would, I say this in some of my speaking events is, all you can do is be the best dance partner that you can possibly be, or the best co-pilot you can be with and I don't want to sound too, I'm not a holy roller or anything, but I'm a very spiritual being, and I believe in, universal laws and God and energy and all that. And I just feel like you got to do your part, though. You can't just expect people to be there for you and go to bat for you. You have to say, hey, I've prepared, I've worked my butt off, I've done all these things. You have to, and I think that, success means, preparation when the door of opportunity opens, have to meet. So you gotta go out there, and you've got to do everything you can. You got to look in the mirror and say, I've done everything possible that I can do to make this happen, or to attain this goal or vision, this inspired vision that I have. So you gotta do the work, period. And if you don't reach that goal, or reach that destination that you set out for, I do firmly believe that God will have your back, in the sense that you will reach something just as of equal value or even greater. Maybe it takes a little detour, but you will go to a place. You hear the stories all the time. Hey, I was striving for this, but I met this person, or this unfortunate thing happened at the time, but it was the best thing that ever could have happened, and it landed me here, and now I'm so grateful for it. How many times do you hear that story? Right?
Yeah, countless.
You got to do your part.
Yep. Yeah, right. Ryan Bowman. Speaking of Ryan has a question for Dr. Shawn.
Ryan Bowman.
That's right. Shawn, who is your favorite pro wrestling writer, and why is it me? Is what Ryan is asking.
Is that a real question?
No. he said,
because you're going to put me over. That's why. You're going to put me into some big storylines finally, man.
That's right. AJ is asking, what do you think of AEW?
I am pulling for them. I am excited for the pro wrestling industry right now. I think it's great that there's something finally buzzing after all these years to maybe, everyone keeps talking about, oh, it's not competition with WWE. At the end of the day, it is and it isn't. At the end of the day, though, people can only spend so much money on. Now, I know that WWE is a machine when it comes to merchandise and I guess they're just a conglomerate. I mean, they're just, a global empire right now. So when you say competition, I guess there is some competition in the sense of maybe ratings, TV rating. I don't think TV ratings seem to be as big or as significant as it once was, like in my era, right? In the Attitude Era, you had 10 million people, I think, or close to it watching every week. Now it's like maybe 1 to 2 million in that range. But I think we rely a lot. There's a lot more other platforms now through social media, like YouTube and different ways streaming. And I don't know. Apparently WWE's making more money now than they did 20 years ago, but not in the TV ratings. That's for sure.
Network deals, digital media, streaming, things like that. Just the different types of platforms. Right. Yeah, it still doesn't look good ultimately, though, that they're like struggling for 2 million viewers a week, though. From a network standpoint.
Chris, and I'm old school, man. I don't care. I'm all about TV ratings, baby. I want, because look, it's a different era. It's a different generation and time, and God bless all these young men and women going after their dream. And I see some phenomenal talent, and I still try to suspend my disbelief. Like I go to a movie, I want to pay my $12 and get my bucket of popcorn and my diet soda, and I want to lose myself in the storyline. I still want to feel that feeling that I felt, that we felt as wrestling fans, but I don't get, it's very far and few between. I will say this to you, as far as AEW, I wish them all the best. I've been backstage a couple times. It was a very, very pleasant overall experience for me, as far as like and that was over a year ago. So maybe things are changing because it's growing. It seems like they're signing someone new every week. There's someone new. I think you got to be careful that you don't spread too thin or get oversaturated. You got enough talent. You need to really work on developing the talent you have there now. I'm all about the boys and girls getting jobs. I think that's great. Competition creates, competition is good, right? But I will say though, when CM Punk made his debut, and I've never been a real big CM Punk fan, to be honest, but I got to tell you, I mean, I give him all the credit in the world for going away, and I think I always give kudos to those who can get out of the wrestling business and go try different hats and have success, or at least go and try. Brock Lesnar did it with football. CM Punk tried it with the UFC. Both he came up short of their personal goals, but man, you got to give him credit for going and trying. And when CM Punk though came back, Chicago, the anticipation, it couldn't have been a better moment. And God, talk about goosebumps, just the authenticity, the organic connection with the crowd, the realism. I loved it, man. And that's why we get into this business, to have moments like that, right?
Yep.
That was
100%,
awesome.
100% goosebump moments. Any particular reason why you don't care for CM Punk that much?
I think, I don't know. I don't want to get too caught up in this, because I think that if you had all the same body types, it would be boring. If you had all guys, I was always kind of, I guess, a body guy, in the sense that I kind of looked up to the guys with the better, bigger physiques, larger than life characters, whether it was, the face painted Ultimate Warriors or Stings or the Road Warriors. But like when Rick Rude walked through the curtain when I was a teenager, I believed that Rick Rude could kick my butt and steal my girlfriend. There was a believability, there was a realism that I just bought into with that. It would be boring to have the same body types, but I don't know, I don't know. I just never, it was hard for me. I didn't get it. I don't, there's certain guys I just don't quite get, but now I get him, and I actually am a fan now. I love him because he's so real. I love realism. I love it when, to me, the art of pro wrestling, the magic of it is when you can take real life parallels and you can blur the lines with the work and intertwine it, where you're like, whoa, I know this is a work. I know this is, this is pro wrestling, but man, there's a lot of realism to this. And I think there's some real emotion going on. And that's what I love is to combine the two. That's why I love UFC, because I know it's real, right? But when you have the build up to the fight, some of the storylines building up, and the fight is almost like window dressing. It's like secondary. I got to get emotionally invested so that now I want to see these guys. That's like the icing on the cake.
100%. Yeah, there was a speaking of AEW, real quick, we're gonna have about a 3-minute lightning round after this here. The MJF is probably one of the best heels to me, like hands down one of the best heels in all of professional wrestling.
He's great.
And it's like there would be one thing, like for instance, he recently was feuding with Brian Pillman Jr. And it'll be just one thing if you just said, hey, okay, well, tonight you're going to have MJF versus Brian Pillman Jr., just an announcement. That would be one thing. But there was some weeks that was adding to that as far as just the realism. He was talking to his sister. He was talking to his aunt.
I saw that.
He was pretending he was talking to a dead Brian Pillman from hell. You know what I mean? Like that's heat. That's heat. That's how you generate heat.
That's great. That was great. Yeah, that's great TV, man. I love it. And even as someone who's from the business and I understand, behind the curtain, I was even like, wow, he must have. I even wondered. I wonder if that was. Did they go over that, or is that? Did he approve of that? Because that's some pretty heavy stuff. But I thought it was great.
I'm sure they approved it, but it's like, even knowing that they approved it, you're like, did he do a little extra? You know what I mean? Like in the very fact in which we know that ultimately they probably approved everything. But the very fact that it had us wondering if like it was a little bit of something like extra goes to show that he's doing his job as a heel.
Put a little salt that you didn't see coming in the wound. It's going to kind of hurt to hear it. I'm expecting it. I'm preparing for it. Okay, I'll let it. But man, I didn't expect you to hit me that hard with it.
Right. Exactly.
So,
absolutely.
And that's the beauty of pro wrestling. And to have fans like we're discussing right now. Was that a little over the line? Did that cause some real heat backstage? Is it, and that's when you can, when you start when the I guess smart marks can question things and really wonder, was that legit, or was that just, was that known? That's when that's good TV.
That's right. 100%. All right. A few more. Let's do a little lightning round here. What was it like working with Stacy Keibler?
Yeah, Stacy was cool. You know, I didn't realize how young she was when I worked with her. She was like 20, 21, real young.
Mm-hmm.
I was in my early 30s at that point. But she was cool, man. You know, like she was just, you know, she was very, very pretty woman, you know, head to toe. I mean,
Yeah.
but she had a cool demeanor, and she kind of felt like, I don't know, like she wasn't like, to me, it didn't seem like come across like a prima donna, like I don't want to break a nail or whatever. You know, she
Mm-hmm.
looks that way, beautiful woman, but
Mm-hmm.
just didn't mind, I think, rolling up her sleeves and getting, you know, I don't think she trained a little bit to be a wrestler and took bumps and whatnot. She just kind of went with the flow. She felt like one of the boys, kind of, really, to be
Yeah.
honest. As ironic as that sounds, she's furthest thing from a looking like a boy, you know. but yeah, she was cool, and
Yeah.
I was proud of her when she did Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
I saw her at an autograph signing in 2007, I believe, and I remember telling her how proud I was to, you know, to see her do that. And you know, that's a hard, apparently world class athletes do that, and he said, man, that's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I'm thinking, how hard can that be? You're a world class athlete, and you're saying that Dance with the Stars, preparing for that was hard. I guess it is. It requires a lot of practice and a lot of skill.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. There's a lot of good questions here. We're pressing on time here. Let's see here. Let's do Invasion Angle 2001. Your thoughts on that?
I think we could have gotten a lot more out of that. I don't know if WCW was just purchased for an egoic thing on Vince's end to just say, I want to just bring these WCW guys in and just smear them. You know, when I came back to WWE, I didn't feel, honestly, I know I had worked with WCW for a year and a half prior, coming back over to WWE. But I always felt like a WWE guy, I guess, in my heart and soul. I started out there. That's where I grew up watching. I didn't feel like an outcast. I had a unique, different situation just because of my particular experience, you know, and how I came up was basically through them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to make a quick point here. This came up in the Hannibal interview that I did last week, was about the invasion angle and the WrestleMania. I don't think there's not even a fan question, but for those who maybe go to and check out that interview. And by the way, I want to plug this real quick. I am building a new YouTube channel. It is Shawn Stasiak's World. Would love the support. You know, subscribe, like, share, hit the bell notification, all that stuff.
Nice.
I'm building from scratch. But I want to say this. I'm going to post some of the interview on my channel as well. You know, there's one of the controversial things with my career during that time was that I leaked and ruined the WCW invasion angle at WrestleMania. Chris, I don't know if you heard this or not, but I'm seeing some of these fans get on these mesh. I got to stay off those things. I'm looking at them just going like fuming, like, are you serious? It's amazing how people take a little bit of information and just blow it so out of proportion, fabricate it. It's a completely different story, or there's 20 different versions.
Yeah.
The fact is, nobody in that company ever told me, Shawn, do not do any interviews. Don't let anyone know about you're even being invited to WrestleMania, let alone calling it the invasion angle, or that we were supposedly going to help Shane McMahon during his match against Vince at WrestleMania in Houston. I think it was WrestleMania 17. It wasn't even called it. There was no storyline. There was no angle. There was no name mentioned of anything. It was such an embryonic stage, and it was nothing. Was like, no one told me anything not to get and do some PR. I thought I was doing a great thing by, hey, I'm promoting WWE. I'm excited about coming back home. It's WrestleMania. I thought I was doing a great thing. And then I end up, that was like the biggest no. I had no idea. I almost got fired before I could even get back to WWE soil.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, it's like, I can't get nothing right with this company, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, I wanted to clear,
if you don't.
so for all you keyboard warriors out there thinking you know it all and thinking that I blew the WrestleMania moment, the truth is, no one told us nothing, man, to not do interviews. There was no name for an angle, a storyline. Invasion was even a word that even like entered my mind or anyone's mind, at least maybe the creative, but they didn't let us know. You would think if Chris, if you and I had a company and we were going to have this big event and we wanted to we keep this on the down low, we would tell that talent, don't say nothing, don't do social media, don't keep quiet. No one said nothing to me, man. You know,
Yeah.
So I just thought I was doing a good thing, and here I am, putting my foot in my mouth all along, never knew it. And then, crap hit the fan, and I almost got fired the second time before I could even get to the arena. But anyway.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, let the listeners know once again, Twitter and your Pro Wrestling Tees information.
Yeah, well, Twitter is same with the Instagram is Dr. Shawn DRSHAWN 008, like James Bond 007. It's I had to do one number up, right? 008. And then Pro Wrestling Tees is just go to that website and just punch in Shawn Stasiak, and it'll take you to the store. I guess you just put the search, put my name in the search bar, and my page will pop up. And right now I just got these cool looking Phobia alter ego shirts made, but I will have some Stasiak designs. I'm going to have some of my father. I'm going to do like a legacy series of my father and I coming real soon. But check out them. I got the Phobia t-shirts are there right now. They're awesome looking. There's one pink version and one blue. And then again, of course, the YouTube channel, Shawn Stasiak's World. Please come aboard. I'm going to be putting all kinds of content out. It's going to be very, very diverse.
Very nice.
That's why I call it my world. Wear different hats. So
yeah, Shawn, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for coming on the show tonight.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me on. I went pretty quick. That was 30 minutes, Chris.
Yeah, 35, 36 almost. Yeah.
Oh, I see that. Okay, there's a timer right there. 36 minutes. Look at that. So do I need to end the show by saying, Chris, goodbye? Goodbye.
Very nice. Well,
how cheesy was that? Yeah, I know. Look at that.
Have a good night, my man.
Okay. All right. Thanks for having me on.